It's aggressive and it's rebellious and their parents hate it, which has always been the mark of good rock and roll. If your parents don't like it, it's good.
What do you want to do with your life?
I want to rock.
Hair metal, glam rock, loud, absurd, ridiculous. What started off as a flash of rebellion turned into a cultural fever dream. And for some, it wasn't just noise, it was a threat.
One of the things that we have found, which we call demetaling, is a program that actually gets the kid out of heavy metal.
Once upon a time, men had more makeup than their girlfriends, ripped guitar solos in leather pants, and called it rebellion. They were loud, arrogant, drenched in eyeliner, attitude, and hairspray. They were reckless, controversial, and completely out of control. Fans loved them, critics hated them, but no one hated them more than concerned parents. For a few explosive years, these bands weren't just entertainers, they were gods, worshipped, ridiculed, envied, and feared. Their lives looked like the music videos. Their music sounded like victory, but beneath the surface was something unstable. A scene built on fantasy, extreme indulgence, and image could only hold together for so long. In the late 70s, American music was in a weird place. Punk was burning out. Traditional metal was getting darker and meaner. The economy was rough, and the optimism of the 60s was dead, and most rock stars looked like they hadn't showered in weeks. And then came a new generation, kids who didn't want to be underground or angry. They wanted to be famous, and they knew the fastest way to get there wasn't subtlety, it was spectacle.
Do you think that you're going to be a rock star?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I'm going to be famous rock star, yeah.
Yeah, so I want to be a rock star.
Gonna be rock stars. I'm going to be a rock star. I am going to be.
What if you don't make it as a rock star?
Oh, I will.
In Los Angeles on the Sunset Strip, bands started turning rebellion into theater. Loud guitars, leather, eyeshadow. Everything was exaggerated and everything amplified. And just when that scene was starting to bubble, MTV launched. Suddenly, it wasn't all about sound, it was about visual impact. You didn't just need a message, you needed a look. Big hair, big choruses, and even bigger personalities. If you could make it look like a rock show before anyone heard one note, you had a shot. And hair metal looked like everything rock had forgotten to be. Fun, flashy, and larger than life. It might be easy to write them off as all style and no substance, but a lot of these bands were tighter, sharper, and more skilled than anyone wanted to admit. The outfits were loud, but the playing, even louder. Sunset Boulevard, 1983. The sidewalks are sticky. The air smells like beer, hairspray, and gasoline. Outside the Whiskey A Go-Go, a line of guys and girls in leather pants and teased hair wait to get in. Each one convinced that they're the next big thing. Flyers cover every pole. Guitars scream from open doors. It's not just a scene, it's survival with eyeliner. And as flashy as they dressed, most of them were actually broke. 5 guys in a 1-bedroom apartment, living off instant noodles and warm beer. They shared clothes, makeup, and as weird as it is, even girlfriends. By day, they handed out flyers in the heat, and by night, they played like their lives depended on it. Alcohol and substances ran rampant, and they blurred everything, numbing the hunger, the anxiety, and the fights. And the whole time, they were walking the streets in full stage gear, tight leather pants, teased hair, and eyeliner running down their faces, stumbling home at 3 a.m., chasing the dream that barely pays rent. But when they finally hit the stage, none of that mattered, because for those 45 minutes, they looked and felt immortal. And at the center of it all, Motley Crue is already living like they made it, wrecking hotel rooms, dodging overdoses, and setting the tone for what hair metal was about to become. Danger, decadence, and absurd theatricality. Every new band on the Strip either copied them or tried to survive in their shadow. And as their fame grew, so did the destruction and controversy. There's a time on one tour stop where the band stole a hotel golf cart in the middle of the night, with no plan and no reason, just because they were simply bored. They drove it straight through the lobby, narrowly missing a front desk clerk, and tore off toward the parking lot. And then, someone had the brilliant idea to ram a car into the hotel pool. Not drive it, not roll it, but push it with the golf cart. In their minds, it wasn't vandalism, it was entertainment. And when they were done, they left the cart half submerged in the shallow end. The hotel banned them for life. But by the time the paperwork came through, the band had already moved on to another city and another disaster. Bands like Motley Crue couldn't stay out of the headlines. DUIs, overdoses, arrests, hotel bans. But instead of hurting their image, it only made them bigger. The chaos became part of the marketing, and soon, every other band on the strip followed the formula. Louder shows, wilder parties, more eyeliner, more fire. And if you couldn't outplay the competition, you had to outdrink them or outshock them. And for a while, it worked. And by the mid-80s, hair metal wasn't just a genre anymore. It was an epidemic. You couldn't turn on MTV without seeing a man in makeup sliding down a guitar neck in slow motion. Record labels scrambled to sign anything with teased hair and a demo tape. And for kids across America, this wasn't music anymore. It was identity. Mallrats were all dressing like off-brand rock stars. High school talent shows had power ballads and leather vests. Even people who hated it knew every lyric to glam anthems. It had gone from rebellion to uniform. And the louder it got, the more nervous parents became. This wasn't just a phase, it was everywhere. Songs about sex, drug-fueled lyrics, satanic symbols, some fake, some not. And it didn't help that some of these bands leaned into darkness for the aesthetic. What looked like theater to fans started looking like corruption to everyone else. Everyone started freaking out, especially parents. In this time, America was gripped by a wave of paranoia. Religious groups and suburban parents believed that heavy metal was corrupting their kids through lyrics, imagery, and even album artwork. Metal wasn't just music anymore. It was seen as a threat to the moral fabric of the country. And then, in 1985, the government got involved. The Parents Music Resource Center, led by Tipper Gore, launched a crusade against explicit music. And their target? Heavy metal. And one scapegoat, Twisted Sister.
And show just how unfair the whole concept of lyrical interpretation and judgment can be, and how many times this can amount to little more than character assassination.
Twisted Sister became a lightning rod for growing moral panic. They were everything suburban America feared and teenagers loved. The Parents Music Resource Center wanted warning labels on explicit albums, and they pointed to songs like We're Not Gonna Take It as examples of dangerous messaging. So they called in the band's frontman, Dee Snider, expecting some dumb, loud-mouthed rock star just to prove their point. Instead, Snider showed up in full stage attire, long hair and sleeveless shirt, and delivered a calm, articulate defense of free expression.
Songs allow a person to put their own imagination, experiences, and dreams into the lyrics. People can interpret it many ways. Ms. Gore was looking for sadomasochism and bondage, and she found it. Someone looking for surgical references would have found it as well.
The moral panic didn't disappear overnight, but for a surreal moment, glam metal wasn't just outrageous, it was political. The face of free speech was a guy in fishnet and war paint. And while Twisted Sister made the headlines, back on the Sunset Strip, things were changing. The scene was blowing up, louder, faster, and flashier. Bands were popping up faster than anyone could keep track. If you had big hair, a few power chords, you probably had a record deal. The labels didn't care about depth. They wanted spectacle. Different names, same sound, and the same slow-motion girls on top of cars. And of course, the corporations noticed. They poured money into anyone who could fit the mold. Suddenly, glam wasn't just a subculture. It was now a product. The strip that once pulsed with rebellion started to feel stale. Every video looked like the last, and every new band blurred into the next. The thing that once flipped off the system now became a commercial. And the audience, they started to tune out. As the music got glossier and more commercial, the reality behind the scenes got even darker. The endless partying wasn't just part of the image anymore, it was eating people alive. The drinking and the substances got harder, the nights got longer, and the same lifestyle that once felt rebellious started feeling like a slow-motion collapse. Some artists disappeared completely, others overdosed. Rehab became a revolving door. The eyeliner stayed on, but the light behind the eyes, it was fading. The dream of making it big on the strip had turned into something else, a loop of gigs, hangovers, and headlines that nobody cared about anymore. And just when it seemed like glam rock had squeezed out its last drop of relevance, something else started bubbling up from underneath. No leather, no hairspray, no over-the-top outfits, just flannel and raw distortion, and a kind of pain that couldn't be glamorized. Seattle arrived, and it wasn't trying to compete with LA. They were burying it. Bands like Nirvana, Soundgarden, and Alice in Chains didn't want to be rock stars. They just wanted to scream. And suddenly, the public was listening. In a few short years, the neon shine of hair metal was replaced by cigarettes and existential dread. Big choruses gave way to raw confessionals, and the over-the-top performances disappeared. And in its place came pain you could believe in. Grunge wasn't about being larger than life. It was about being crushed by it. Grunge didn't just end an era, it rewired the entire rock landscape at the time. Overnight, labels dropped glam acts, radios pulled their songs, and the guys that once ruled the Sunset Strip were suddenly outdated. What replaced it wasn't pretty. It was raw, unfiltered, and depressive. But to a whole new generation, it felt honest. Glam was theater. Grunge was confession. And whether you loved it or you hated it, it made sure that rock would never look the same again. It was finally over for glam rock. So, when did hair metal go too far? The truth is, it went too far from the start. It was a celebration of hedonism wrapped in leopard print and a giant middle finger in mascara. It was supposed to be loud, excessive, and ridiculous. And that was the point. But like all great parties, it didn't know when to stop. And by the time the hangover hit, a new sound was already at the door. And maybe that's the real question. Is freedom still freedom if it devours you in the process? Can fun still matter when the fallout hits everyone around you? The scene imploded and the era ended, but some of them kept going, still clinging on to that spark like it meant something. And maybe it still does. Or maybe it was just a beautiful mess we weren't meant to understand. And if there's anything to take from it now, it's this. We don't have to overthink everything. Sometimes a little bit of fantasy is the only thing that keeps us sane. And sometimes you gotta just say fuck it and rock on.